Welcome back to another edition of the podcast, and tonight is our Game Week 37 National League predictions. Now, a lot of you are probably watching and probably thinking, what's going on? Why are you on your own? Why is your southern friend not with you, the man from down south? Well, he will be joining us very shortly. That is, of course, Paul. For the time being, you'll have to put up with my Yorkshire dulcet tones. But nevertheless, we're going to get straight into tonight's podcast. We're going to speak about a lot of topics. I want to get Paul's take later on, particularly about the relegation battle. I also want to get your opinions on that too, to everyone that is also watching. We're going to talk a lot about the top half of the table. There's a lot of specific topics as well that we're going to be talking about tonight as well, that I'm going to talk about shortly. As everyone's aware, a lot has happened in the National League off the field in the last week or so. We've had a managerial change, an ownership potential change as well that's meant to be going through as well, that we're going to be discussing tonight as well. We've also seen a lot change in the table-wise. The bottom four's changed slightly as well, and that's something we're going to be speaking about too. But before we do that, we're going to come over to the live chat. Please remember to check out our sponsors, Cards Accepted. If you use the link in the description, you can get 50% off your card machine. Also, please remember to like and subscribe. Liking just gets it out to more people. It'll get recommended to more people who are on YouTube and are wanting to find a podcast that covers the National League like this. And subscribing also builds the community. Also, a massive thank you to everyone that's already tuned in with us tonight. 50 people are listening to me at the moment, waffle on my own. For those 50 of you who are watching, I will be joined by Paul very shortly. But without any further ado, that's enough of me waffling now. Let's have a look at the live chat. I do need a lot of people to be busy tonight, by the way, guys, because, of course, I'm on my own for the time being. First person who's come in, I saw this before, and I'm not going to read this name because I have a suspicion that there's something dodgy about it. It's also a bit of a weird message as well. He's put, as a Rochdale fan, I wish that we were half as good as Oldham. What a superb club Oldham are. A proper football club with great fans and great pies and a magnificent stadium. Is there any sarcasm in that? Because if there isn't, it's quite a surprising statement, and I don't think a statement that would represent the majority of the Dale fan base, let's put it like that. But thank you very much for your comment. Caroline has come in. She's also got like a green, it's highlighted her name. I don't know what that means, but she's put, as a Shots fan, I hope we can up our game Saturday. We always play better against the higher teams. Yeah, but you're against Oxford City, so that's not particularly a higher team. John's in tonight, and he said, good evening. He's also said, disappointing with Ardley's dismissal. He's not had the chance to build the team. I don't think that it was a right decision. He's a manager that I respect a lot, to be honest. I was quite surprised to see him being dismissed. I don't think he's done that bad of a job. He's not set the world alight, in my opinion, but he's had to work with the squad that he's had. And in my opinion, I don't think the recruitment at York was the best in the summer. On paper, yes, they brought a lot of big names in, but I don't think as a team they've gelled, and there's certainly areas where they do need to improve, especially going into next season. It is a bit of a weird one because when you're in a relegation battle like York have been in, of course, there's always been that threat of them actually dropping into the bottom four. But they've always seemed like they can pull it out of the bag when they need to. We keep seeing them picking up results here and there, getting a few decent points as well. I think they got one, didn't they, against Oldham? Was it a point I think they got as well there, which was a strong point. But like I've previously mentioned, he's not set the world alight, and he probably, on paper, you would think maybe might have done better, but it just feels, I don't know, it's just something a bit weird about it, because you look at York now, they're a point above the drop zone at the moment. It's not actually in their hands. Sides below them have games in hand on them as well. And if they win those games in hands, they're going to go above them. Now, you've, of course, have been pointed at Welling's previous manager. I'm going to get Paul's take on that when he joins us very shortly. And I want to get your takes as well, people, on that. But he's a manager that's certainly done very well at Worthing, overachieved, but he's coming into a York side with a lot of expectation. He's got no previous National League experience as a manager. And for me, if I look bored and ugly at the moment, I'd have thought, keep Hardley. If you're going to sack Hardley, bring in a manager that knows this division, that can keep the side up until the end of the season. Now, for me, if I'm thinking of a name to come in on an interim basis, I'd be saying John Askin. I know it's something that's been talked about a bit, and it's kind of split between the York fan base on that opinion. But you bring a manager in like that, York fans clearly understand him. A lot of the current players who are at York have previously been managed under him. So I think it would have fitted well until the end of the season, just to keep York in this division. And then at the end of the season, maybe make this change when the former Worthing manager had a full summer behind him to bring his own players, get his philosophy across. Because at the moment, I just do not think that's the right time to be having a managerial change. Mr. Luke is in tonight, and he said, "Hello, gents. Great 4-0 win against Oxford City, as expected. However, our fatigue started to show at Woking. You know the drill. No pressure whatsoever." Yeah, it was a bit of a shock, I think, losing to Woking midweek. Of course, Woking are another side that are down there. A lot of people are tipping to actually go down now, and they're another side that have been very, very poor this season, and they've certainly underachieved. I think that's kind of I can't even get the word out. I think people understand what I'm meaning by that. But they're certainly a side, I think, so far this season, that have certainly underachieved. It's an understatement. I think that's the word I'm meaning. I can't get my words out when I'm on my own. But they're a side that have certainly underachieved this season. But for me, when I look at Woking at the moment, they're another side that changed their manager. It's not particularly worked. I think they're a better side than what they were under Sal, but they're another side that are still in that drop zone and that are certainly showing no signs of actually getting out of the difficult situation that they're in now until Tuesday, when they did actually manage to get a massive win later on against Gateshead. But I don't think that should cover the cracks. It might cover the cracks for the time being, and a lot of you guys will probably be saying now, I think Woking will be able to find a way out of this mess. But one win doesn't change a season. And I think overall, you look at Woking, and I'm still not too sure that they have the ability or the team spirit to actually stay up this season. I'm very concerned for them. From a Gateshead perspective, when you look at that game, it's certainly going to be a very disappointing game, but you're not going to win every single game, and they're still in quite a comfortable position at the moment, Gateshead. We'll have a look at the next comments then now. Big Bob has said, "Evening all, welcome Bob." I believe that's Oldham fan, I think that is. George has come and said, "Good evening, Luke and Paul. Loved and hated Tuesday's matches. Mr. Luke can agree. That's the ref performance. That ref performance was insane." And then I'm not going to try to pronounce this, but he said, "Good day all. Welcome to the stream." Stingem's come in and he said, "Shame our cup run has finally come to an end. Still plenty for us to play for, though." Yeah, there certainly is. When you look at Maidstone, I think it was always going to end at some point. The only disappointing thing maybe you'd say about this cup run is they didn't get that dream draw where they got a Man United or City or a Liverpool perhaps. But yeah, it's still a good cup run. I think I'd heard you made about $500,000, didn't you, from that? And that'll certainly benefit you even if you don't go up this season from a Maidstone perspective. Of course, you're, I think, just outside the playoffs at the moment. I'd like to see you come back up because you're a good side to cover. Sam, sorry, I do apologise, has come in and said, "Kiddie, massive." They certainly had a massive win on Tuesday evening away at Solihull. A very good away following as well there. And then we've had the Dorking DWFC away day clip, Dorking to beat Chesterfield. I see that as a bit of a banana skin, for that one. We're coming on to that shortly, doing our predictions later on in the podcast when Paul does join me. You look at Chesterfield, I think they're 23 points clear now after that win against Barnet. That just shows what they're about, doesn't it? The 20 points clear, you're going to second in the league away and you're still managing to comfortably outclass them on the evening. But Dorking, I see, when you look at Dorking at the moment, they're fighting for their lives near the bottom. They're another side that have been dragged into the relegation zone at the moment, and they're desperately trying to find that next win because at the moment it isn't looking good for Dorking. And it's something I want to speak about in more detail when Paul does join us. But they're a side for me. You look at sides below them. Oxford, I think we can probably all agree they're down and out now. They're too far gone for them to have any chance of surviving this season. You then look at the others. You've got Dorking in 23rd, Woking, and then of course you've got name's gone out of my head now. You've got, who is it? Dorking, Woking, and Kidderminster. I think Kidderminster are still in the drop zone at the moment. And you look at Kidderminster, they're looking like a side that aren't going to be in that drop zone for much longer. The way they're going, I'm sure they'll try to climb their way out of it. Dorking seem to get a win and then they lose form the bounce. They're just struggling for no momentum. They just can't seem to get any momentum. And you're looking at sides above them that could potentially be dragged into it. Wealdstone, York, if this new manager bounce doesn't have the new manager, doesn't have the impact that I think York fans are dying for. York fans are dying for at the moment, I should say. So yeah, it's certainly interesting down there. And then we've had George who's come in and said, "Evening everyone, enjoyed Tuesday. Yet holding a 1-goal lead till the 106th minute isn't very fun." Yeah, I understand your meaning. I understand where you're coming from. We had Dagenham away on Saturday. We went there, we went 1-0 up and we were kind of hanging on towards the end. Sam Johnson once again coming to the Sherman's rescue. I don't think we're going to get away with that every single week, but that was certainly very nervy. And for any Dagenham fans that may be watching tonight, they will probably understand where I'm coming from by that. They probably thought they should have scored and got an equaliser. We've had Dean who's come in and he said, hope everything goes well for Rochdale from Aspirite. Oldham watched the gap, 29 points so far, lol. And then we've had Harry who's come in and he said, evening lads, a lot has happened at York. Yeah, it certainly has. I've spoken about it slightly there. We'll speak about it a bit more when Paul does get here. And then someone's done a Jason Cundy. Has anyone seen Solihull Moors? I like that, to be fair. But I've always wanted to do that on this podcast one night. When we defeat a side, Halifax, I might do that for the final game of the season, game week of the season. And then we've had, was impressed with work in second half on Tuesday. I think they'll stay up if they can play like that. Our goalkeeper cost us that game, unfortunately. Ridiculous pen to give away onto Boreham Wood. And then Big Bad Bob's just changed his profile picture as well. Well done. Is that a car, I think, there? He's changed it to, he said, didn't lose many either, couldn't get his own players in either. And then Joel has come in tonight and he said, I think, is that Bournemouth? I think he meant is a good, oh no, sorry, Hinswood. That's why I never mentioned his name because I can't pronounce it yet. Is a good appointment. I think as a Shots fan, I wanted him before we got Widdrington in, and I expect their results to improve. Yeah, potentially. I think overall it's a gamble that you've got 10 or so games left until the end of the season from Ugla's perspective. I think overall York would have been fine with Ardley, but they've kind of gambled. I think overall, I think Ugla was always going to appoint this manager at the end of the season. But I just think it is a bit of a gamble. If it does go wrong, York are going to be in a lot of trouble. But if it goes correctly, you'd probably say Ugla's a genius. He did this at the right time. And then next season, they can go on to try and achieve the goals that we're expecting from York, which is the aim for York, I think, is to get out of this division. And then Harry, who's a York fan, come in and said, I think that York would have been better off getting Askin now and bringing in Hinshelwood in the summer. That's totally where I'm coming from, Harry. That's my opinion. And then we've got Sam has said, Phil Brown's Barmy Army, what a manager turned out around our season. Yeah, he certainly has. And he's done a very good job there. He's someone that I think Kidderminster there, that's an example of a side changing the manager at the right time. It clearly wasn't working at Kidderminster. It was only going one way. They've changed the manager, and now it is looking likely that they're going to be able to climb out of the drop zone. They haven't done yet, but if they carry on the way they're going, they certainly will at some point. And then we've had we've had Ali who's come in and said, hello all, amazing how one win can change your perspective. Massive game against Kiddies Saturday. It's the hope that kills you. Yeah, it certainly is. We've been saying working there down and out with Oxford now. A lot of people have kind of been given that impression online. I still feel you're going to go down. I do apologise for that. But suddenly, I think everyone's perspective will change. Now, everyone will probably be thinking, you know what, I think Woking will be able to get out of this if they get pulling results out of the bag like we've seen there. And then we've had Aaron, the battle to stay out of this relegation zone feels like it might actually go down to the final few rounds. No team in the bottom half of the table is safe. No, they certainly are. I think there's 7 points between 11th place Eastleigh and 23rd place Dorking, and that just shows how mad this division is. Around 750 grand Maidstone have got. Keza is in tonight. He said, hello, welcome to the stream. Keza, a York fan said York are staying up. David's come in tonight and he said, who is going to fall out of the playoffs and or into the relegation zone? I'm going to stick with Solihull and Wealdstone. Sorry, Paul. So David thinks that Solihull are going to fall out of the playoffs. Of course, they sit fourth at the moment. They're 4 points safe in the playoffs, comfortably in the playoffs at the moment. We're looking at Wealdstone, and they're certainly a side that I want to talk a bit about more tonight. It'll be better to speak about them, I should say, when Paul's able to join us very shortly. And then we've also had, it's 50-50. We'll have to see how the new manager gets on. I'm actually going to do a poll. So as I do this, get more comments in, guys. I know I've got lots more to read as well. We're going to do a poll to see what you think might go down, just as we wait for Paul. Let me just try do this. I'm going to actually put it in as a Q&A, actually. Who do you think bottom for predictions? Right, so I've started the Q&A. Get your opinions in. I'm just going to quickly check that Paul's able to get the link. I'll just have a quick look, guys. I do apologise for this. Yeah, I think we're sound. It should be able to join us shortly. So yeah, let us know your bottom 4 predictions. Let's actually have a look at the table as we wait for Paul. So here it is at the moment. Let's analyse this like relegation battle at the moment. So as I've previously mentioned, I think Oxford are down and out. I think they're all but confirmed to go down this season and finish bottom inevitably. Dorking in 23rd. Of course, it might look bad, but if they get a win, they get a bit of momentum, I should say, they can climb out of it. The problem you've got with Dorking is they've got a very, very tough end to the season. They've still got to play Southend twice, Chesterfield, Bromley, Altrincham, I think they've got to play as well. They've got a very tough end to the season. Maybe that's a blessing in disguise for them. Maybe, as we've seen, Dorking often do play better against the better side in the division, and they might not be as much pressure on individual games where a side, let's say like Woking, are playing a lot of sides around them towards the end of the season, which means every game is crucial because if they lose, they're gifting points to relegation rivals, if that makes sense. We'll have a look and see what people are saying. You get your predictions in, guys. Someone said Oxford guaranteed to go down, surely. The Blue Room have come in and said, evening, gents, hope you're well. 3 big wins in a row for Southend. Yeah, it certainly is. Please remember to get your predictions in, guys. 75 people watching at the moment. I hope I'm doing okay on my own. I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone, I'm not going to lie. But please get your predictions in. We've also had, as we've got quite a lot of people watching, please remember to like and subscribe. We've got 78 people watching. If all of you like, we'll have 78 likes. So yeah, please do that. It doesn't take much. Literally a little button towards that. Also, there'll be a handful of you who haven't subscribed, and a lot of people who will be watching for the first time. I'm not usually on my own. Don't panic. I do have a co-host with me, and if you are someone you'll prefer him as he's a Wheelstone fan. So please consider subscribing. He's going to be joining us very, very shortly. I do hope so. So yeah, please remember to like and subscribe. Let's see what people have been saying then on their predictions to go down. So these are people who've come in. Someone said Oxford, Maidenhead, Wheelstone and Rochdale. That's a massive, massive call, considering Rochdale have had a bit of positive news earlier today. Of course, there's talks about them having a takeover. It might be a good time to come on to them and quickly speak about them. People are coming in with their bottom four predictions now. Someone said Oxford, Maidenhead, Dorking and York. Oxford, yes, York to go down. That's an interesting one as well. And then Joe's come and said, I think Oxford City, Dorking, Fylde and Maidenhead. I think if you consider Fylde's run and they are still not out of it, I think they might run out of steam. Yes, it's certainly, I think a lot of people are kind of taking it for granted that Fylde are going to be able to get out. Well, they are out of it and stay out of it because of that good run that they had, but they're still right in the thick of it at the moment. And if you actually look at their form, it's not the best on paper. Of course, they've just lost 4-0 to who was it? Boreham Wood. Just went out of my head. So maybe they're not out of it. Of course, they sit on 39 points, sat in 19th at the moment. So they're actually only out of the drop zone on goal difference. It's funny, isn't it? There's actually 4 sides that level on points, which is from 21st all the way to 18th. It's so tight at the bottom at the moment. Someone said, Elsa said Fylde as well. Oxford, Woking, York and AFC Fylde. So they're backing Dorking to get out of this mess at the moment. And then we've also had Stingems come in and said Oxford, Woking, Dorking and Wheelstone. Yeah, Wheelstone are certainly a side that I do fear for at the moment. They've got games in hand, yeah, but they've got a very tough end to the season. And with them being part-time, it's going to be Saturday, Tuesday constantly. Now, for a side that's part-time, that's going to have a detrimental effect on them. And they've even got the distractions of still being in the FA Trophy as well. Harry's come in and he said Oxford, Woking, Dorking and Wheelstone. That is my bottom 4. Bit of a spoiler alert. I was trying to wait till Paul gets here, but I think it would be in that order as well. Yeah, that'd be my bottom 4 in that order as well at the moment. You know, you look at Oxford, I think everyone can agree they're down and out. Woking, like I've previously mentioned, I don't think that one win should cover up the cracks. There's still a lot of issues there at the moment. You know, they've got Kidderminster on Saturday, and that's a massive, massive game. Maybe my perspective will change if they do manage to defeat Kidderminster. You know, I think there's 3 massive 6-pointers on Saturday. 3 massive, massive games. Everyone's coming in now with their bottom 4 predictions. We've had Oxford, Woking, Fylde and York. Fylde and York, this is what I'm finding interesting because, you know, you look at Fylde and like I've said, it feels like they're getting out of it, but they're still only out of the drop zone on goal difference. York, overall, are certainly not on the best of form at the moment. They've had 2 defeats in 5, but they've only had 1 win in 5. So it depends on how you want to look at that. If you actually think about it, they've had 1 win in 7, which isn't good, and that is relegation form if you think of it like that. So yeah, I do fear for them a little bit. There is part of me that's got a gut feeling that they could potentially go down this season. It would be interesting to see what impact the new manager has on York City. We've had Oxford, Dorking, Fylde and Maidenhead come in. We've had Oxford, Woking, Wheelstone, and then that's a bit of a cop-out. Keze said Kiddie or Fylde. We've had Oxford, Woking, York and Dorking. Not sure, to be honest, he said. We've had Oxford City, Woking, Wealdstone and York City. A lot of people are going for York to go down, and it's interesting. I wonder if this time last week people were saying that or not. More people have come in. York's next 3 games, Wealdstone, Fylde and Kiddie, will decide our season. Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's 3 6-pointers overall, isn't it? Especially for the opposition as well. I'm just going to check if Paul is able still to get on. I've got to send this link again. So I do apologise for this, guys. It is a bit rushed tonight. I do apologise. Let me just quickly try send this to the correct email. As you're doing that, get your comments in, people. Paul should be joining us literally now. I'm just sending this link to him. And hopefully when he does join us, I can have a breather for 2 minutes. Yeah, I'll just quickly send this link to Paul. I'll just put it in there. Let me just see. I need some background music for whenever this happens again, guys. I'll just try find the email. There we go. Yeah, it should work now. Right, I think we are back on. I'm surprised so many of you are watching tonight, so thank you very much to everyone that's able to cope with me just waffling on. We've had Oxford, aren't necessarily a poorly performing club. They've just achieved too much too quickly. Yeah, I totally agree with that. You know, you've seen sides that have gone into the Premiership before, and when they've come up, maybe you say they've done that too quickly, that they haven't really built a side that's good enough for the Premier League. And I think there's a comparison here with Oxford. No one particularly expected them to go up last season. Of course, they went up through the playoffs as the underdog. Paul is here finally, so it's good to have him on. Hey up, Paul, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Sorry, I'm just turning your live stream off. Yeah, apologies for being late. Daddy, taxi duties got in the way, so apologies for that, everybody. I hope everyone's all right.
No problem whatsoever. I basically, for the last 20 minutes, I've been waffling on. We've been kind of discussing the relegation battle at the moment. Of course, Paul, I sent you a message saying I wanted to hear your bottom 4. Everyone's coming in with like their bottom 4 predictions. Yeah, let's firstly have a look towards the bottom. If we can come on to it here. I'm going to just kind of dive straight into it, Paul. Would you be able to give your bottom 4 predictions?
Yes. I go Oxford, Dorking, Woking, and York.
Right, let's start with what I think Oxford. Then why have you put them bottom? I know it's kind of an obvious one in a way, but
listen, they're done for. I know I've always said that I thought out of all the teams at one point, I thought they were going to get out of it. They showed a bit of fight and a bit of hunger and surprised a few and scored a few goals, but that's all dried up. And if you look at it now, they're 2 games behind Dorking, the same number of games as the other teams in the bottom 4. There's games in hand against them. Wealdstone have got 4 games in hand against them. So, yeah, they've only got 28 points out of 36 games, and they've got to get another 12 or 13 to maybe get out of that bottom 4. So they've got to almost get half of what they've already got in their remaining, 36, 46 in their remaining 10 games. So it's just, that's I think it's just nigh and impossible for them.
yeah.
Dorking, I mean, the only chink of light for the likes of Dorking and Wealdstone is the fact that they've got games in hand. But that means absolutely nothing if you can't make them, count. And we saw on Tuesday night, Wealdstone didn't make one of those count by losing to Rochdale quite convincingly. So Woking I saw the other week, and they're just a poor outfit. They seem rudderless, and many Woking fans on this chat over the last couple of weeks have mentioned that they can see them going down. It just they were just really, really surprising how poor they were. Could Kiddie get out of it? Phil Brown certainly certainly making a real fist of it. I just think York just have always been really unconvincing, and at this stage of the season, it's a bold move to bring someone like Adam Hinshelwood in. Very highly rated National League South. They do play a brand of football that if you score 4, we'll score 5. And I think in the National League, when you're in the bottom 4, bottom 5, bottom 6, is that the best way to play? Only time will tell. And I'll be able to tell you firsthand next Thursday because I'm going up there on Saturday to watch Wealdstone playing a 6-pointer. So, listen, the only reason I haven't put Wealdstone in there at this present time is they've got games in hand. And they have to improve. Without a shadow of a doubt, they have to improve. It is really, really tough going at the moment down at the Vale. They don't seem convincing. They don't seem like they can get any sort of momentum going. But you know, who knows? I spoke to David Noble very briefly this evening. I was down at the training ground, and you know, he just said, "Look, we just need some points on the board," which is easier said than done. But they seem fairly positive and upbeat considering they got absolutely battered on Tuesday night on a long journey to Rochdale. Yeah. So that's where I'm going. I think Kiddie will get out of it. I think York will drop in. Fylde have done enough. Wealdstone games in hand. Ask me in a month's time, Luke, and I'll probably be telling you Wealdstone will get relegated because they won't have won their games in hand. So
it's just it's kind of not been the best of starts, has it for Wealdstone? They haven't been able to get that first win. And the problem that you've got at the moment is I think Dorking's an example of it. They'll get a win, but they can't get any momentum. They can't build any form. And we've seen how pivotal that is for a side that's down there to just have that 5 or 6 games of winning streak or even just an unbeaten streak, I should say there. You know, we saw Fylde do it. They had a brilliant start to 2024. They've kind of slowed down a little bit now. And of course, they're still not out of the woods just of yet. They're actually still in the thick of it. But they've kind of got, I won't say a cushion as such, but it does feel like they're not as under as much pressure as what they were now that they've got out of it. And I think most people are kind of backing them to be able to survive this season. For me, who I've gone for, I've previously said it before you joined us, Paul, but I've said Oxford. I think it's fairly obvious. I think everyone who's given a prediction said they're going to go down. Dorking, I'm still going to go down. And it'd be very sad to see because they're a side that I particularly, like in this division. I think they bring something different to this division. But it's just not going well there at the moment. They get a win, then they go on a 4 or 5 game losing streak. And at the moment, it's like, where's that next win going to come from? It will come, but after that, you're thinking, look, you've got to get another win here, and you've got to gain a bit of momentum to pull yourselves out of this drop zone and climb away from it. And at the moment, I just can't see any momentum coming. And you look at Mark White and Dork, and he doesn't seem confident. And it's kind of a different side to him, Mark White, that we're seeing at the moment. I look at him and I just don't think he's particularly sure of himself that maybe he actually thinks inside this side's actually good enough to get out of it. And then you look at Woking as well. I've been saying, I've kept repeating it. I don't think that win should cover the cracks. That Gateshead game, I think that's what it is doing. It's a brilliant win, don't get me wrong, but after the Kidderminster game, when we come again and do this next week, Paul, it might be a better time to speak about Woking. Like I've said, I don't think one win means anything. If they win 1 or 2, if they win 2 or 3 games, maybe then you'd start to have the opinion that they can get out of it. And then you're not going to like this, but I've gone for Wealdstone to go down, Paul. They've got so many games in hand, yeah, but the problem that they've got is they've got a very tough end to the season. Southend they've got twice. They've got Chesterfield as well in there. And we're not even mentioning that they're actually part-time too, Wealdstone. And when you've got games in hand at this time of the season, it's going to be Saturday, Tuesday, constantly. They're probably the most out-of-form side in the division at the moment. And for me, I genuinely think that they're going to fall into it, especially when you look at Kidderminster certainly improving. And I personally think that they're going to be able to find a way out of it. Is there anyone else that you think could get sucked into it and it being quite close? Do you think Wealdstone are a side for you that you think it's going to come down to the final day for them?
Oh, yeah, that's a shadow of that. Like I said, I think I'm just being a bit of an optimist, being a fan of Wealdstone, that because we've got games in hand, that will play in our favour and we'll get something out of them. Clearly, points on the board is much more important than games in hand, because if you don't win those, then you're well in the shit. So I think at the moment I'm just holding on to that hope because those games in hand are there. Like I said, in a month's time when we play 4 or 5 games, and it itself will be a very different story. Start Saturday. Should we beat in Rochdale away from home on a Tuesday? It's probably not a fixture you look at and think we should get too much out of it. Should we be going to York on Saturday and getting something out of it? I think we should, and that's the sort of games we've got to target. Although we have got the likes of Southend, Oldham, I think Altrincham coming up away, that type of team. We have still got Oxfords and Dawkins filed to play. So, it's in our own hands. I think we've got to get probably 4 wins. If you look at Wealdstone, get 4 wins, Fylde get 4 wins, or York get 4 wins, that may make them safe. That sort of 50-point mark will probably make them safe.
Yeah,
it's not going to be very easy. It's not going to be very fun for the fans of these teams. It's fun for the neutral. It's an absolute.
It is for me.
Yeah, it's a nuts league. I spoke to an Oldham fan the other day, and she was talking about them bottling it in front of the highest crowd in God knows how many years the other week, and the fact that she didn't realise Wealdstone were as low as they were. You can't take your eye off it. It literally is every week something is happening. Places are being changed. We talk about different teams every week going up, going down, getting in the playoffs. Going on runs. It's just. It is mental, and it's great fun to talk about. It's maybe not so much fun to be in it when you're there on a Saturday at 3 o'clock or 7:45 on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, it certainly isn't. I think, to be honest, Paul, I think we probably should get on with the predictions very shortly and try and speak a bit more about the clubs in detail as we're going on with the predictions. But just before we do that, I've had my take. The chat have certainly spoke a lot about it as well. That doesn't mean don't get your opinions in again, guys, and new people have come in as well about it. York City, that's probably one of the major talking points of this week's podcast that I think we have to talk about. Matt Uglow again has decided to make a change in the managerial role. Of course, the name's gone out of my head. Neil Ardley, of course, was sacked and dismissed of his duties at York City. The previous Worthing manager has come in and been replaced Ardley. What's your take on it, Paul? Do you agree with Uglow in this situation?
It's a really difficult one, isn't it? When Ugly came in and splashed the cash, if you like, at the beginning of the season, he spent the money and brought the players in without maybe a proven named manager. And clearly he sort of struggled a little bit. They never got going. So to bring in someone like Neil Ardley, who's got extensive experience both in the Football League and National League, seemed like a brilliant piece of business for York in the position they were in, to not necessarily get up into the playoffs, but just to consolidate, just to even it out and let's go again next season sort of scenario. And it clearly hasn't happened. And I think the problem is, Luke, whenever a new manager comes into a football club, if they change the way that the fans expect them to play, it's accepted if you win games. I think Neil Ardley's probably come in and played a slightly different way than the York City fans would like or expect. And because of that, they tolerate it if you're winning games. York City weren't winning games. They were drawing games, admittedly. They weren't losing too many. So all of a sudden, that manager that comes in that's brand new, that's got experience, that has pedigree, that's utilising a squad that costs however many hundreds of £1,000s a year, they're not playing an attractive brand of football. They're not getting results. So the fans are going to moan and groan. And I think Ugler's kind of alluded to that in what he said in terms of replacing him. Like I said, it's a massive gamble to get Adam Hinshelwood in. Very highly rated. I think he was one of the ones that was in the frame for the Wealdstone job, or was talked about when Stuart Maynard left. And he plays a brilliant brand of football, but very open. I think they had the top scorer in the National League down there on the South Coast, and that's all well and good. But when you're fighting for survival and you're actually in the bottom four or out of bottom four just on goal difference, you don't want that goal difference to be affected. And if they start going a bit cavalier and a little bit too front-footed and playing, the high press and being open at the back, it could go horribly wrong for them. In another hand, it may be the catalyst they need with the centre forwards and sort of the quality they have to actually go on a run like Fylde and get themselves out of it. So massive, massive gamble. Adam Hinshaw was going to back himself. It starts Saturday against Wealdstone. I'll be there. I'll let you know on Thursday how it goes. I'm hoping I'll be talking about a win, not a loss. But good luck to Adam Hinshaw. Great step up for him. But I just think it's going to be really difficult for him.
It certainly is. And it's not the kind of situation that, as him coming to York, it's the kind of situation I think that he'd ideally want. I think he'd much rather be coming in at the end of the season if Worthing didn't get promoted, where he can have a full summer, a fresh start. He's coming in right at the deep end. His expectations here are to literally keep York City in the National League. And if he does that, then he's probably done the hard part in a way. He's done that. He's done what he needed to initially, and then next season he has that opportunity to bring in a bunch of players and kind of bring his philosophy into play. Where at the moment, he's very, very tight at the bottom, and the expectations of York, I think, are now just to survive this season. It's going to be a season to forget in a certain aspect. On the league tables, I expected a lot more. The only issue I've got is when I look at Ugler is, I think, is he trying to please the fans too much? You've had a few fans were saying, we've had enough of Hardley, the football's not good enough. Has he made that change because he's trying to listen to the fans too much? And I know you always say, I think a good owner is someone who does listen to the fans. But for me, when I look at Ugler, he's very vocal on social media. We're all aware of that. But I just think he's a bit rash. He brings in a lot of big names and says, look who I can bring in. Look at the pulling power that I've got. And it's not always effective. It's not been a good season for York, and he has to take responsibility for that and hope that next season he can, hopefully achieve better with York City. We're going to move on to the predictions now then. We'll have a look at the table as we do that. Chesterfield remaining top. They had an impressive win against Barnet. Bromley didn't play, I don't believe, in midweek. I don't think so. Oh, no, did they? Did they play midweek? I'll have a look now. No, they didn't play midweek. Barnet, of course, defeated to top of the table Chesterfield. Solihull losing to Kidderminster. That's a massive win for Kidderminster, isn't it, Paul?
Oh, huge win. I mean, Phil Brown is... I think we doubted him, didn't we? He comes in and has a persona that, that permatan and his cravat scarf, and the fact that I think if he was made of chocolate, he'd probably eat himself. And, what was he the sort of appointment that you require when they're not really scoring goals? And, we saw it when he was with Southend. He struggled when they weren't really doing particularly well. But fair play to Phil Brown. He's gone and attracted a few good footballers, and he's got them playing, and they're on that role, and they're on that role at the right time of the season to get themselves. Wealdstone are on a bit of a downturn. York are on a downturn. Woking, Dorking, them and Ebbsfleet are the ones that are starting to, and Fylde are the ones that have been in the bottom three all season, are the ones that are starting to creep out and hitting form at the right time. So, massive win for Kiddie. A good football team. Like I think you always said, Luke, there was potential in there. We were just worried that they weren't scoring enough goals.
Yeah.
Funny enough, you start to score goals, you start to win games and pick up points. So, it's not rocket science. It's just finding the right formula and the right players to do it for you.
Gateshead, Oldham and Altrincham also played in midweek. Gateshead still sit fifth after a defeat to Woking. Quite a disappointing result, that, especially conceding late on. I think they actually did take the lead in that match. Altrincham, of course, that's their third defeat in a row, losing to Southend. The one side in that from fourth to Altrincham, who did play fourth to ninth, I should say, who actually managed to get a win, was, of course, Oldham. And you have to say fair play to them. A good reaction after a defeat to Kidderminster at home, going all the way down to Eastleigh and bringing back all 3 points. Overall, what do you think of that? Gateshead losing, Oldham winning, and of course Altrincham losing as well.
Well, it's just like I said a moment ago. No team really wants to take grasp of this and stay in the playoffs or make a bit of a charge to be dominant in that playoff picture, to sort of go in with a little bit of form and a little bit of fear of winning them all against everyone else. Everyone seems to be able to beat everybody, Luke, and on their day, it's incredible, because are teams being inconsistent in defeats, or are they being inconsistent in winning? If that makes sense, no team sets out to lose every game. They obviously always set out to win a game, but it just seems that no one's consistent enough in either way to be able to get grasp of where they're going to sit in the league at the end of the season. And it chops and changes all the time. You watch Sofa Score, you watch Flash Score, and the live tables forever bouncing around. So, listen, all teams can do is react to a loss or a draw by getting a win the next game if they can, and just try and build a bit of momentum, try and stay in a bit of form, and try and get some points on the board.
Of course, the final game on Tuesday was, of course, your side in action, losing to Rochdale away 3-0. I think it's a good time to actually bring in this comment that we saw directed to you, Paul. And it was, Paul, what do you think about the fixture congestion? Meaning, if one game postponed or winning the FA Trophy, meaning we have to play on Thursday.
Yeah. It's a real conundrum, Dominic. I think a few weeks ago we would have been like sitting there mid-table-ish, looking at having Stuart Maynard in charge and thinking, right, we could really push on and get to Wembley. And he goes on a Thursday. We get a few games postponed because our pitch is waterlogged because we've had so much rain, and we don't have the resources to be able to drain it as well. And all of a sudden you're Saturday, Tuesday with a new manager. You can't get the players who are injured back in properly because they haven't done any sort of recuperation work. So it's a really, really tough one. I don't want to see us not winning the trophy. We have got Solihull at home, so it's a tough ask to win anyway. But it is what it is. They are part-time, but they do get paid okay to do what they do. Most of them are footballers. There's very few of them who actually work as well as play. So listen, they've just got to ride out this storm a little bit like York. Is just stay in the National League and let it settle down. Let the manager get his pre-season and let us sort the pitch out and everything else. And next season we'll be in a better place. But you're right, Dominic. It's a Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday conundrum at the moment. So we'll see how that goes.
Of course, none of the other sides were in action midweek, apart from Southend, who managed to get, of course, another impressive win against Altrincham after they just actually defeated Aldershot. I'm starting to proper like Southend at the moment. They seem to be doing us a lot of favours, and if they can seem to get a result against Oldham on Saturday, then I think they will become my second favourite club in this division, the way they're going at the moment. But nothing's changed in the bottom four, apart from maybe you'd say a missed opportunity from Wealdstone with games in hand. They kind of are 3 hits in a way at the moment, but they will stop being in future weeks, especially when you see sides like Kidderminster improving, and it certainly was a big win for them. And like we keep saying, if they keep going the way they are going at the moment, they're going to climb out of the drop zone, which means one of these guys are going to fall in. I think we've probably come to a time now where we're going to get on with the predictions. First game then is Dorking v Chesterfield. Get all your predictions in, guys, in the live chat. We'll put them on the screen and react to them as well if we do get chance. Paul, what are you thinking for this one? Because quickly, just from me, you look at the reverse fixture. Dorking took Chesterfield all the way, and it took I think a 98th minute winner at the technique for Chesterfield to actually win. I think it was from Quigley on first game of the season. And I think with Dorking fighting for their lives at the moment, this is the type of game where I could really see them picking up a result. And I think both sides like to score a lot of goals. So I'm actually going to go for a 2-2 draw. How do you see it going, Paul?
Yeah, I'm not quite as optimistic as you, Luke, for Dorking. I think they're going to. I think they're going to succumb maybe not quite easily, but it's like you said, they let goals in, and Chesterfield are more than capable of scoring goals. And I just think I can see Dorking losing 3-1.
Fair enough. Then a lot of people are back in Chesterfield, as you'd expect. Two people have come in with Dorking wins, though, 2-1 and 3-2. Yeah, we'll move on to the next game then now. Next game we've got Fylde versus Maidenhead. Is this a 6-pointer? Perhaps it'd be a massive win for either side. I think especially for Maidenhead, they'll need another win, I think, to climb away from being involved in this relegation battle. Going from 42 to 45 would do them the world of good. And from Fylde's perspective, to not be in the drop zone at 5 o'clock on Saturday would be, I think, the main aim for them. And I think playing against Maidenhead, you'd say this is a must-win game, but they certainly can't afford to lose, can they?
No, I mean, again, if you look at that fixture, Fylde win, they're on the same number of points as Maidenhead, and all of a sudden, Maidenhead are they dropping in, or are Fylde getting away? Yeah. Maidenhead are just being Maidenhead, aren't they? They pick up results. They did it again. I can't remember who they played, but it was top end of the table the other day. Never thought they'd win. They won. So I've gone with a 1-1 draw. They're not both massive goal scoring teams, are they? And they're both on a bit of form. And like you said, they're not going to want to lose the game. So I've gone with a 1-1 draw for that one.
I'm agreeing with you in the majority of the chat on that one as well. We'll move on to the next game then. Bournemouth versus Gateshead. A difficult game, I think, for Gateshead, especially considering Bournemouth are coming into this on the back of a 4-0 win against Fylde. Gateshead come into this after a long trip to Woking and not picking up any results in there. Maybe it's not the type of game Gateshead fans would be wanting, going back down south to a side that's just thumped someone 4-0. I'm actually going to go for a 2-0 Bournemouth win. I could see Gateshead at the moment going on a bit of a bad run of form. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with Bournemouth 2, Gateshead 3. I think they're both very capable of scoring goals. Gateshead are in the top 6. There's a reason why they're in the top 6. They're a good football team. They're playing on a lovely surface at Bournemouth, and that will really play into the way that Gateshead play. But don't get you wrong, Bournemouth getting Shimanga back. They found a bit of form. They seem to have settled down and got themselves out of that rough patch. So I think it'll be a high-scoring game, this one. But Gateshead will win this. I've got a feel for it. But then again, I'm not very good at predictions. So
we'll move on to the next game then. Now, and it's my team in action against, is it second place? I think second place Bromley at the moment. Although the second Bromley, they have been a little bit shaky, haven't they, in recent weeks? Dismissing that result against Chesterfield, there's been a few poor performances in there, losing to Eastleigh, dropping points at home to Dagenham, losing to Hartlepool, Fylde as well. It's not been plain sailing there for Bromley at the moment. And Halifax come into this on 4 wins on the spin. A very good win against Dagenham, and they probably fancy the chances to get something out of this game. And maybe I'm being a bit optimistic and a bit biased, but I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 Halifax win. How do you see it going, Paul?
I have gone the other way around. I've got Bromley 2, Halifax 1. A real battle of a game, this one, won't it be? They're both fairly miserly in defence historically. I think Bromley not having that best of form at the moment, right at the wrong time. Although, the fact they're still in the FA Trophy, they're second. They're likely to sort of maybe stay second, possibly third if Barnet do sort of gazump them at the back end of this season. But I think Bromley it's just a strong side, and they are at home on the plastic. I just sense that they're going to just get themselves a result there, but it's not going to be an easy one, and I wouldn't be surprised if Halifax can reverse it the other way, to be honest.
It's certainly going to be a tight game, isn't it, this game? I think low scoring as well. Next game then that we'll have a look at, Eastleigh versus Solihull Moors. I've gone for a 1-1 draw. Solihull come into this after a defeat against Kidderminster Eastleigh come into this after a defeat against Oldham. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw for this one. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've put 3-3 because I think it's hard to divide them, but they're both very, very capable of scoring goals. Tavon Campbell, who's gone to Solihull via Wealdstone from Rochdale, has found his scoring boots and assists. Eastleigh, we know what they've got up top with McCullum and co. It's just whether they can stop the goals going in at their own goals. And I think it would be probably quite an entertaining game, this, if you were to go and watch a National League game that will produce goals. I think this is probably going to be one of them. And I suppose it's a bit of my 3-3 is my sort of average score of the week.
My freak predictions coming up very shortly. I've not copped out this week, Paul. We've had we forgot to actually preview Dagenham versus Altrincham. Of course, I went down to Dagenham with Halifax, and I didn't think they were awful. They just didn't take the chances, and I think that shows how much they're missing in Ethan Young at the moment. Altrincham are desperately going to need a win. It's still in their hands if they can win the games in hands at the moment, but they have slipped outside of the playoffs, and I think this is a massive game for them. I'm actually going to go for an Altrincham 3-1 win. They need to get back to winning ways here. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with a Dagenham. I've got, again, quite high scoring this week. Dagenham 3, Altrincham 2. From what you said there, Luke, and I haven't seen Dagenham, but they're vastly improved. I haven't seen them for a while, but they're vastly improved. And if they can take their chances, if you're saying they're creating chances, that's a positive. If you've got football teams that are generating creating chances but not taking them, at some point that may turn. If you've got a football team that isn't creating chances, you're in a real desperate situation. So I think Dagenham got to look at that as a positive and say, right, at some point, this could come good. Altrincham are just in that wretched run of form. I mean, look, one win in five, and they haven't won in the last 4. That's really un-Altrincham-like. You don't want them to start slumping right now, whereas although Dagenham's form isn't hugely better, it's still probably more consistent with that win and 2 draws in sandwich between those losses than it has been previously. So I guess with, Dagenham being at home as well is always going to help. So I've gone with a Dagenham 3, Altrincham 2 score.
Next game then, Ebbsfleet versus Rochdale. And for this one, I've gone with an Ebbsfleet 3-2 win. Rochdale, of course, come into this after a good win against Wealdstone. Some actually good news today as well about potential takeover. But Ebbsfleet unbeaten in 5 at the moment. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, so I'm actually going to go for a 3-2 Ebbsfleet win. How do you see it going, Paul?
I agree with you. I've gone with an Ebbsfleet win. They're just on that massive wave of winning and playing well and getting the new managers made a huge difference. And I think just again being at home, Rochdale, they were okay on Tuesday night against Wealdstone, but Wealdstone were particularly poor. And we let them play and we gave them some goals. And I just don't see Ebbsfleet being quite as open and maybe as giving as Wealdstone were. So I think Ebbsfleet will be a tougher nut to crack for them down there in Kent. So I've gone with Ebbsfleet 2, Rochdale 1.
Hartlepool versus Barnet. Then Hartlepool have certainly improved, although they did have a bit of a disappointing result on Saturday. And maybe some might say that has kind of cancelled any chance of them getting in the playoffs. But there's still that small possibility, isn't there? And I think if you would say Hartlepool have got any chance of getting in and sneaking in the playoffs, then you'd have to say this is a must-win game. For Barnet, they'll be wanting to stay in the top 3, won't they, at the end of the season? And when you're seeing sides like Oldham improve, it is going to start getting a little bit nervy for them, and it's not a guarantee. For me, though, you look at Hartlepool at the moment, I think overall they're improving. They're at home. We've seen in recent weeks them improving at home, defeating the likes of Altrincham as well. I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 Hartlepool win. What are you predicting, Paul?
I've gone with 2-2. Barnet, they're just showing a bit of inconsistency at the moment. They were showing a real level of consistency early in the season, and they were grabbing draws from losses and wins from draws in the last minutes, and defensively were very good, quite potent up top. That sort of it tailed away a little bit, but they're just showing, the level of consistency there for Barnet at this stage of the season is just a little bit up and down, and that's a long way to go, isn't it? All the way up there to Hartlepool, and no matter what part of the season it is. So they're a tough team, Barnet, and they're going to go down fighting. They're not going to give up easily. So I think it will be a 2-2 draw because Hartlepool just on a really good run of form. Again, they're at home, and they're going to fancy their chances.
Oldham versus Southend then now. Southend come into this unbeaten in 4 with actually 3 wins on the spin, and those have been against some very good sides, including Maidenhead away, which is a difficult place to go, Altrincham and Aldershot at home. We know Oldham aren't particularly strong at home. That's their kind of weak area, isn't it, at the moment, where you can exploit them, is when they are playing at home. We saw Kidderminster go there and turn them over in front of a crowd of over 12,000. Will Southend do the same? For me, I'm going to go for a draw, 1-1 draw. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with a 1-0 Southend win.
Ooh.
I think just off the back of what Southend have done, haven't lost in the last 4. I think it was almost a case of they realised they were in a relegation scrap and decided to wake up again, didn't they? So and they're now out of that, not out of the woods completely, but they're sort of back out of being in that bottom 4 or 5 and being in danger. So Oldham at home are just an enigma. There's no reason why they should be like they are. That Boundary Park should be an absolute fortress. 12,000 Oldham fans. Is it the weight of expectation? Is it weighing heavy on the shoulders of the Oldham players playing at home in front of big crowds? The expectation they should be doing well, and they just don't seem to be able to cope with it. They are better away from home. I predicted in the week to one of the Oldham fans that they would win all the way down in Eastleigh. I just feel that Southend will go down and give it a really good go. A good National League game. I think you'd agree, Luke, wouldn't you? Like, if you're going to watch a National League game, Oldham Southend's one of those types. And I just think Southend will win 1-0.
Next game, we've got Oxford versus Aldershot, and I promised a freak result this week, and I'm going for this game. 4-3 Aldershot. Oxford do score a lot of goals, to be fair, although they are sitting bottom, but they also concede a lot. And it's kind of vice versa, but not to the same extent as Oxford from Aldershot's perspective. They score a lot, they also concede a lot, considering their position. And I think this is a kind of game for me as a neutral. Is the type of game to watch, I think. I think there's certainly going to be a lot of goals in this game. 4-3, if I could bet, I would bet on this game. But yeah, I'm going to go for a 4-3 Aldershot win. How are you seeing it going? How do you see it going, Paul?
I have gone with Aldershot to score 4, but I've gone with Oxford to score none. But listen, Aldershot do let goals in. They are susceptible to it. I just don't think they're just going to be too strong for Oxford. They're a good football inside. Aldershot. Oxford listen, if they go down early 1-2-0, they could get battered. The longer they stay in the game, the more chance they got of getting the point. They've got something to hold on to. But Aldershot's front 3 are just lethal. So if they can get it together, they're going to win handsomely at Oxford on Saturday.
2 6-pointers then for the final 2 games we're going to preview. Woking v Kidderminster is the first one. Woking come into this after a very big win against Gateshead, but they need to back this up now against an informed Kidderminster. It's another situation where Kidderminster get a win, they get out of the relegation zone likely. They start to look up. Woking lose, everyone will be saying that they're down and out again, like they were saying last week. If they win, though, from Woking's perspective, they'd be very close to getting out of the drop zone. And is it possible for them to get out of the drop zone? Yeah, I think it is still possible for them to get out of the drop zone after that win against Gateshead. But it's going to be a big ask, isn't it, against Kidderminster? Woking, I don't think, are the strongest at home. I think they still have the worst home form in the division against the Kidderminster side that are better away than what they are at home. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 1-1 draw. A bit of a cop-out, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with a Kidderminster win, 2-0 to Kidderminster. Like you said, very, very good team under Phil Brown. Loads of form, good away from home. Woking have just wretched. I mean, from a Wealdstone perspective, I think I probably would like them to draw, to be honest, because they could then both drop 2 points. But I think from a National League perspective and looking at it as a neutral, I think Kidderminster will win that game 2-0.
Final game then that we are going to preview, York v Wealdstone. Your side, of course, in action, winless under David Noble, playing against the York side at probably the worst possible time when they've just had they might have a new manager bounce. I'm sorry, Paul, but I'm going to back York to win this 1-0. Wealdstone, of course, aren't the strongest away, are they either? So I'm going to back York to win this 1-0, which would be damaging for Wealdstone. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with a York Wealdstone 2-2 draw. Shauna Dark was back training today. He's been in a bit of form before he damaged his hammy. There's hope that he'll be back in the squad, maybe starting. So, yeah, it's not going to be a pretty game. Neither team are going to want to lose. Wealdstone certainly have to improve on what they did on Tuesday night against Rochdale and play as well as they did against Woking, but take their chances and not give anything away, because it's just a massive, massive game for both clubs to get to that 50-point mark. And, you know, if it's one win off that 4 they need after the last 10, 11, 14 games. So I'm going up there. I'm hoping they'll win. I'm hoping they'll put in a good performance, but I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw.
Fair enough then. And I do believe that wraps up our predictions. We actually forgot to have a look at the predictions table. It wasn't the best week for you, Paul. You
No.
were 1-4-6. That was a mistake by me. You're on 1-4-6, not 1-4-5. And I'm on 157 points. Yeah, Paul, thoughts on that? Hoping to do better this week?
Yeah, well, I can't do any worse than that. Well, I suppose I could not get any points, but that's a pretty bang average week for me. I did when I looked at them. I was like, oh, geez, I was well off the mark for a lot of them. So it's a difficult one to predict. I know all the guys that sort of watch and predict themselves, they must look at it and think, blimey, he's so, you know, you just think one thing and the complete opposite tends to happen. So I've gone with a few more sort of outlandish results this week in hope that I might pick up a few more points.
We disagree. I think it's the only one prediction. I think this will be the first time there's only one prediction we've actually both agreed on fully correctly. So yeah, I think whatever happens, one of us is going to have a good week and one of us is going to have a bad week. So it'll be an interesting game week. But Paul, once again, thank you very much for joining me tonight. It's much appreciated, and thank you to everyone that's also tuned in.
Yeah, no, apologies for being late, but no, thanks for having me, and enjoy your football weekend, guys and girls, where you're watching. I hope mine's better this weekend than it was last weekend with, well, the whole week with Wealdstone not really performing too well, and I got injured at 7-a-side on Monday. So yeah, I've had better football in weeks, Luke.
Yeah, tell me about it's not been the worst week for us, and if we can beat Bromley, I'll certainly be in a positive mood next week as well. But thank you everyone that's tuned in. Brilliant numbers once again tonight. Please remember to like and subscribe as well, and we will see you next week.